A man in his early 40s, clad in a sharp suit, was driving a black sports car, his focus locked entirely on getting to a high-stakes business meeting. His eyes were darting around, anxious about the time, as he weaved through traffic, cutting corners and pushing his car to its limits. He was in a hurry, and nothing was going to stop him. Up ahead, an elderly man, driving a dull grey sedan, was taking his time, trying to keep pace with the flow of traffic. His face was weathered, his hands gripping the steering wheel with a calm but steady grip. But that calmness was about to be shattered. The sports car, desperate to get ahead, swung into the lane in front of the sedan without warning. The elderly man barely had time to react before the sports car almost clipped the front of his vehicle. He slammed on the brakes, heart racing, as his car jerked to a stop just inches from the bumper of another vehicle. He let out a shaky breath, cursing under his breath. The driver of the sports car didn't even look back, pressing on the accelerator and leaving the elderly man to regain his composure. To the young driver, it was nothing more than a quick maneuver. But to the elderly man, it was a near catastrophe. The elderly man, his heart still pounding in his chest, looked in the rearview mirror, watching the sports car zip out of sight. He muttered, "Some people have no respect." His hands were still trembling as he gripped the wheel tighter, trying to calm his nerves. It had been a close call, and he wasn't sure how much longer he could keep driving like this. He slowed down, his mind still racing from the scare, as he quietly wondered how many other drivers on the road shared the same reckless attitude. "I've been driving for decades, but these young drivers are something else," he sighed to himself. But what he didn't know was that the sports car's driver wasn't the only one watching this dangerous moment unfold. Behind the sports car, unnoticed by everyone on the road, was a sleek Tesla Model S, driven by none other than Elon Musk. The Tesla's autopilot system smoothly adjusted to maintain a safe distance from the vehicles around it, and Elon, deep in thought, had his eyes on the road. The day had been quiet for him, but the near collision up ahead immediately caught his attention. Elon observed with a sense of disbelief as the sports car swerved and cut off the elderly man, causing a dangerous situation. "That was reckless," he muttered under his breath. But instead of just brushing it off like any other driver might, Elon knew that it was time for action. He believed in technology, not just to innovate, but to improve people's lives. Without a second thought, he reached for his phone and began texting his senior team at Tesla. "We need to alert the local authorities about a dangerous driver I just witnessed," he typed quickly. As the car continued on, Elon couldn't help but feel that this was more than just a random incident, it was a chance for him to make a real difference. Meanwhile, the driver of the sports car, oblivious to the chain of events he had set in motion, continued driving down the highway. His phone buzzed once, but he didn't check it, too focused on getting to his destination. But soon, his actions would catch up to him. Back at Tesla, Elon had already contacted local authorities and had them run a check on the license plate of the sports car. Within minutes, the driver's information had been flagged, and the police were alerted to his reckless behavior. It wasn't long before the incident was beginning to make its rounds on social media. By the time the driver had made it to his meeting, his name was already making the news, and the story was beginning to gather steam. The public was abuzz with outrage, and the driver's reputation was quickly crumbling. The elderly man, still unaware that anything had escalated, arrived home after his drive, exhausted from the stress of the morning. But as he sat down in his living room, he noticed something unusual. The news was talking about an incident on the highway, where a reckless driver had endangered others. His name wasn't mentioned, but as the footage played, he recognized his own car in the background. His eyes widened in disbelief. His heart skipped a beat as he saw the headline, "Tesla CEO witnesses dangerous driver, takes immediate action." The story focused not only on the near miss, but on how Elon Musk had been the one to flag the dangerous driver and bring attention to the issue. The elderly man couldn't believe it. "That's what happened?" he whispered to himself, trying to process the turn of events. What he had thought was a close call on his own part was now part of a much larger narrative. And it wasn't just about bad driving, it was about responsibility. The sports car driver, now sitting in his office, was growing more and more agitated as he scrolled through his phone. How did this even become a story? He muttered angrily. His colleagues were looking at him with a mix of curiosity and concern, clearly aware of the situation. The news had gone viral, and people were calling him out for his reckless driving. Elon Musk takes action after witnessing dangerous driving incident, one headline read. Comments flooded his social media accounts, criticizing his behavior. "You're a danger to others." One comment read, "Think about how your actions could have hurt someone." The driver slammed his fist on the desk, but deep down, he knew he was in the wrong. The realization was starting to sink in. This was no longer just about a moment of frustration on the road. It was about the responsibility all drivers have to each other. The public's reaction only intensified. People began to share their own road rage stories, comparing their experiences to the incident. There was a growing sense of collective outrage. The incident wasn't just about one driver's poor decision, it became a broader conversation about road safety, responsibility, and how technology could change the way people drove. Elon Musk, now the unofficial voice of the story, took to social media to make a statement. "Road safety should never be taken lightly," he tweeted. "We need better technology to prevent these kinds of incidents, and we need a cultural shift toward accountability." The driver of the sports car, realizing the full scope of what had happened, issued a public apology. In a video posted to his social media, he expressed his regret for what had occurred and vowed to change his behavior. "I didn't think about the consequences of my actions," he said. "I'll be more mindful in the future." But the damage had already been done. His apology wasn't enough to stop the flood of negative comments. The public had already made up its mind. And the sports car driver was left to deal with the consequences. The elderly man, on the other hand, received an outpouring of support. People were praising him for staying calm in a dangerous situation. "I was just trying to get home," he said humbly during an interview. "It's not about me. It's about everyone being more responsible on the road." His calm demeanor became an example of how to handle moments of stress. Meanwhile, the incident had sparked discussions about road safety across the country. Advocacy groups began to push for stricter regulations on driving behavior, and many began to wonder if self-driving cars could offer a solution to this ever-growing problem. As the story began to wind down, the conversation continued. The driver of the sports car learned the hard way about the consequences of his actions. The elderly man, though shaken, had become a symbol of grace under pressure. And Elon Musk, ever the innovator, had once again sparked a conversation about how technology and accountability could reshape the world. In the end, the incident on the highway was a stark reminder to everyone: your actions matter, and sometimes the world is watching, ready to take action.